my darling viewers, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy, and this time I'm reviewing The Inexplicable Logic of My Life by Benjamin Alire Saenz. So this book was written by the author of Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, which I have already read and reviewed. I think it's amazing and a really big reason about why I picked up this book in the first place. The Inexplicable Logic of My Life follows Salvador, and this is a very character-centered book. Like, there is sort of a rough plot, but mostly it's about Salvador and his two best friends, Samantha and Fido, and Salvador's father, and just family in general. And we definitely get to see these characters very deeply and very in depth. The book starts off as Salvador, Samantha, and Fido are starting their senior year of high school. And Salvador in particular is struggling with this idea of who he is and what his future is going to be and who he is turning into. So he grew up in this very loving family. He has his dad, who is super affectionate and adores him and really is a great calming, guiding influence. Like, his dad loves so much, not just Salvador, but he's also like a second parent to Samantha. The dad is super amazing and one of my favorite parts of this book, I'm not gonna lie. But Salvador's struggling. He's getting into fights a lot. Some of them center around the fact that his father is gay, and some of his classmates, one classmate in particular, has started using slurs talking about his father and about Salvador. Sal just gets so angry and loses it that he starts fighting and punching, and he's never really done this before in his life. This is not something that's been a part of him, and he's like, where did this come from? Where is this anger? Why am I lashing out? And he's very introspective and trying to figure out what's going on, but at the same time, he's not quite sure. He's very worried about the fact that he might be taking after his biological father, since his adopted dad, the one he knows is his father, isn't actually biologically him and his. And so he's worrying about the nature versus nurture thing, and can you inherit violence? Like, he doesn't know anything about his dad. He doesn't know who his dad was. He doesn't know what kind of person he was. And so Salvador's afraid that he's turning into his biological father. And so there's a big question here about his identity and about his family and where he came from. Salvador is also white. Both his parents were white, but he's being raised in this Mexican-American Hispanic family. And he feels very much like a Mexican-American. That's the traditions he's been brought up in. That's the kind of family he has. And so he's also dealing with that identity of who he is. He's also struggling with relationships a little bit. It's a tiny part of this book. It's not a huge part. But thinking about the girlfriends he's had and comparing that with his father, who hasn't been in a relationship like almost the entire time Salvador's been living with him. And he's wondering why his dad isn't, because his dad is such a caring person that it seems a bit weird that he wouldn't have somebody. And then a huge part of this is his relationship with Samantha, who is his best friend. And his dynamic with Samantha is so awesome. Sal's a bit more chill and to himself and a little bit more passive. Not that he can't stand up for himself. Obviously, he's getting into fights. But Samantha's much more vocal and stubborn, and she's a great female character. She's so smart and she's so clever, and she pushes Salvador to also be smarter and to think about things and to try things out, and pushes him outside of his comfort zone, which I really love. Like, Samantha's amazing. But we also get to see Samantha's family life, and Samantha's also being raised by one parent, by just her mother, and the relationship she has with her mother is not great. Her mom's kind of absent. She's off doing partying and sometimes forgets about Samantha. And so really, Salvador's dad is also keeping an eye on Samantha, making sure that she's okay and she's got this together, and which I love, like, that relationship that like Vincenti has with both kids and how he kind of takes care of both of them. But Samantha's relationship with her mom plays a huge part in this. I love the fact that they kind of fight, but they also definitely like each other. Like, they love each other. It's just not it's not the same kind of love that Salvador and his dad have. And then Salvador's other best friend is Fido. And he and Sam don't really hang out in the same circles, like they're two separate friend groups. But Fido is this kid from the street, and he's got it rough. His mom is a drug addict, and Fido's working multiple jobs while trying to finish high school and save up money so he can afford college. Like, he wants to be the good kid so badly and get on that straight and narrow, but also he's dealing with the realities of living on the street and living in this family, and he has to like keep the money that he has earned like secret from his mom so that she won't spend it on drugs. um and he loves his mom, but it's a complicated relationship because she's supposed to be taking care of him, not the other way around. I also love Fido because he's a little feisty, and part of that is the way that he was brought up on the streets. And he talks throughout this book. We get to find out some of the circumstances and why he does the things he does. Um, like I adore all three of these kids. They are amazing. The dad's a painter, which I kind of love the fact that he's artistic, and that's a part of this book. Um, Art and looking at the world. Benjamin Alire Saenz also writes in a very poetic style. It is very much prose, though. Like, it is short sentences, it's easy to comprehend, but the way that he describes things within those sentences is so beautiful and so well thought out. Very introspective writing, which I adored. There is also kind of this impending death looming, which we find out about it so early in the book that I don't think it's a spoiler, but if you are super cautious about spoilers, sort of a spoiler warning. But throughout this book, Salvador is dealing with the fact that his grandmother's cancer has come back and that she's dying of cancer. So that is a huge part of this book, and grief and death play a huge, huge part of this book. A lot. So, and spoilers. This book had me crying a lot. It's very emotional. These kids go through a very rough story arc and journey throughout the story. Some awful things happen, and definitely, like, I was crying even though I was reading this at work, which I probably should not have done. I was like visibly like, I need to go take a break just because the book got me, not because of actual work. I don't I don't cry a lot when I'm reading, and especially don't cry a lot when I'm in public. So the fact that I was crying at my desk at work is a good sign of how emotional this book is. So fair warning on that. So the friendships that he has with Salvador and Sam are a huge part of his life, but also his family and what family is, because we're talking about him being adopted, wondering about his birth parents. His mother died when he was like 3, so he doesn't really remember her. He knows some things about her because his adopted dad and his mom were like best friends, but he still doesn't know that much about her. But his family is really his adopted dad's family, and he, has the aunts and the uncles and the giant family with lots of cousins, and the grandmother that adores him, and the grandfather, and he is very much a part of this Mexican American family that is very affectionate and loud and demonstrates it in some weird ways. Like, he talks about how his different uncles show affection. Like, one of them gives him money because he's like, I don't his dad one of his uncles like shows affection by giving him money every time he sees him, like, this is for you, go take care of yourself. Which is kind of sweet. And then some of his like aunts are like, sit down and talk to me and tell me what's going on. And it's a crazy family, and the few bits we get to see of like the giant extended family are amazing. Like, I want to be part of this family. Like, Salvador definitely has a good home life, which I adore, and his dad is so amazing. Writing takes a big part of this book also. One of the big focuses of this book is that Salvador has this letter from his mom that was left to him for when he was ready, and his dad has finally decided to give it to him now that he's a senior in high school. And Salvador's like, I don't know if I want to read this. There's also his impending college essays, because he's doing applications. He's a senior of high school. He has to apply to colleges. And he doesn't really know himself, so he doesn't know how to explain himself to a college. So that's a big part of this. There's a lot of texting back and forth, so we get to see the text messages between him and Sam. Like, sometimes we'll sit in the same room and text each other back and forth, which is kind of cute. There's a couple of journal entries that get shown throughout here, so I love how writing is such a part of this book also, as well as the photographs, as well as his dad's paintings. So art is a part of this. I love the fact that his dad also has his own life and his own stuff going on. Like, I don't want to spoil his dad's story arc, but there's definitely some stuff that his dad is also growing in and dealing with. So it's not just about the teenagers figuring out their lives. This book is also very much a personal book. Like, you can tell it while you're reading it. In the acknowledgments, he talks about how his mom had died before he started writing this, and that definitely becomes a part of this book. Struggling and dealing with different relationships we have with parents, and particularly mothers, and losing a mother or a mother figure. Which I was definitely like processing that also, having also lost my mother and my parents, like seeing that a part of this book. And it's very much an introspective story of trying to figure out and deal with grief and how that manifests and how it's supposed to look almost. They talk about the stages of grief in here. So definitely a huge part of this book. So this is definitely a novel where you're taking a journey along with these characters. So I don't know if this was the most helpful one, since there isn't like a strong plot that I can tell you without like spoiling the things that happen to them. Because part of this journey is the fact that some of this is just unexpected. That life just happens. Some of it's a mess. This is a bit episodic sometimes, where like something really bad happens, but then it gets wrapped up nicely, and you're like, in real life, that would never happen. Not all of this stuff would happen to these three people, really. And they definitely wouldn't get cleaned up so nicely. But I definitely enjoyed these characters and the story. And yes, I do recommend The Inexplicable Logic of My Life by Benjamin Alire Saenz. I gave it 4 stars, so totally check it out. It is not as good as Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, though. So I totally 100% recommend that one. I'm pretty sure I gave that book 5 stars. It's amazing. So if you're only going to read one of them, go read Aristotle and Dante. But this one's also like a gem. I just didn't... The book's such a slower pace, and it's much more introspective, so it took me longer to get through, and it wasn't as enjoyable a read. Like, it was really more about struggling with things personally, both these characters, but also thinking back on it myself and my own life and dealing with that as well. So it's a good book, but it's not quite the... I mean, there are definitely humorous, fun parts of this book, and I love the friendship between these characters. But it's not overall this like lighter read. It's definitely a deeper story, and so I couldn't really give it 5 stars. But yeah, I still recommend it. Totally go check it out. Let me know in the comments below if you have read this, or if you've read Aristotle and Dante, or if you've read any of Benjamin Alire Saenz's other books. I know there's one about a drug addict that I haven't read yet. So, what do you guys recommend? What have you loved, and what have you hated? Basically. So, peace out. I love you guys, and keep reading. Bye!